I'm Ketel Le Goulven, and this is Mission to Change, the show where I hear from people who turn business into a force for good and learn about their journey to make it happen.
Okay. He's a cutie, but sometimes he barks.
Today, I meet with Patrik Lundström, the CEO of Renewcell, an innovative company producing fabric from recycled clothing instead of natural resources. Patrik is on a mission to make the fashion industry more sustainable.
My name is Patrik Lundström, as you said. I'm Swedish. I absolutely think that science can save fashion and the environment. We will save the planet by building businesses that take care of what we once have already produced.
Fashion is a highly polluting industry, and nearly all textiles produced, 85% of them either end up in a landfill or incinerated. But what I didn't know and blew my mind is that many of the clothes we wear are from viscose, a wood pulp product coming from old and endangered forests. That's right, the clothes in your closets are very likely made from an ancient forest.
Fashion consists mainly of three big fibers, and it's cotton, polyester, and viscose. All of them are environmentally dangerous, let's say. So you have the viscose where you're cutting down the trees. You have the cotton that is very bad crop to grow, and then you have the polyesters. There's two problems we need to solve. We need to stop cutting down all the trees, so deforestation, but we also need to replace cotton and polyester because those two are enormous contributors to greenhouse gases and so forth. So we're in for a huge change in the fashion industry, and the recyclability here in the fashion industry is important.
There are basically three ways to reduce fashion's environmental footprint. 1, produce less clothes. 2, reuse and recycle existing clothes. And 3, produce clothing in a way that doesn't harm the environment. Producing less clothes, option 1, might not be very realistic given population growth.
We have a growing population. We grow from 3.7 billion people to 5.4 billion people in the middle class. It's a fantastic story. We lift people from poverty into middle class. But these people, they want to clothe themselves exactly like you and me. They want to have several pair of trousers. They want to have several pair of T-shirts and shirts and so forth. And we have an obligation to help them to have that without endangering the environment.
So the fashion industry is on a quest to explore option 2 and 3.
The fashion industry, they want to do good. They are tapping into all trends, and they see that this environmental trend is there, and they are fearing that they will miss out if they can't change. And they're trying to change into becoming sustainable, but the solutions are lacking. And that is where Renewcell comes in. We have a solution to that problem. The growing population, replacing these bad crops and these bad textiles, and supporting the fashion industry.
Patrik's company, Renewcell, produces viscose made not from ancient forest, but from recycled clothing. It is part of a growing movement of businesses using science to change fashion for the better.
I have a science background. I like science, and then making good in the world is also something that I burn for, of course, and get a lot of energy from. And when it comes to this process, it is environmentally friendly, and we're trying to solve a big problem that we do have in the fashion industry today. And we're trying to be a part of that. And I believe that this decade is the decade of change. We need to change all our production processes to become environmentally friendly. And that means that we need to use what we once have already produced. So this thinking about that you can actually take something from the earth crust, let's say oil or trees or steel and so forth, and just run it through the value chain one time and then put it on a landfill or burn it or so. That's just not sustainable. We need to change that.
So you're a scientist by training originally, because before being an engineer, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not a scientist, but I have a master in chemical engineering, meaning that you basically have a very strong foundation in technology. I have never been working in research, but in science I've always been involved. I also have a business degree, but I mean, those two goes hand in hand when it comes to trying to actually take that science that somebody has developed and making it big and getting it into implementation in the world and actually getting somebody to use it. That's what I do.
That's why I want to hear Patrik's story. He has a scientific background and a business degree, but above all, he wants to do good. The opportunity to bring all this together came when a friend of his, together with a team of scientists, discovered a process to turn old clothes into biofuels and realized it could be used for so much more.
That was actually some scientists at the Royal Institute of Technology, who was, as you correctly say, was looking into how to make biodiesel out of different cellulosic materials. And they were trying to understand how could we use clothes, for example, as a base material to make biofuels. Now, what they realized was that it's possible to use clothes, make the dissolving pulp, and then use that dissolving pulp to make fibers and new clothes, and you create a closed loop in the textile industry, and that has never been achieved before.
So at this stage, the scientists had a solution with possible applications in different industries. This is when Patrik, with years of experience working with multinational companies like GE and DSM, came in to turn this scientific solution into a business opportunity.
Well, they need help to scale up and make a business out of their science, and they also need help with funding the company and putting the strategy in place. And that is stuff that I have been working with for all my life. So in that sense, we were a perfect match. I had all this business background with the science, with the science backbone, let's say, but they had all this knowledge about how to make the technology work. So with that, my role was to, or is still, to make this business available and large, and then make sure that this product comes out on the market and change fashion.
And Patrik initially made two big contributions: a strategic focus and a plan to scale.
First of all, we need to have one strategic direction. And strategy is all about choosing what not to do. In all companies, you don't have time to do everything. You spread yourself way too thin. And you need to focus on where the company need to go and what's the issues that you need to solve in order to get there. We took the science and looked at it and said, well, fashion is the best area to be in. And then we decided, what the strategic directions was in science, in fashion. And then we started to implement that. When it comes to strategy, don't dwell on it. It's supposed to take a month or two. I know that companies are spending years and years and have piles of PowerPoint presentations that nobody in the end reads. Strategy is a month or maximum two of knowledgeable people, and they set the direction, and you take your decisions, and then you go, and then you can redirect that after a year or two. But just because otherwise you're going to get lost.
So they had the science, they had the focus on fashion. They now had to apply this to that.
Normally when you make viscose or you use tree, and trees are being then you chop down the trees, and then you make your dissolving pulp, and from the dissolving pulp you make viscose fibers. What we do is that we don't chop down the trees. We use old clothes, your old jeans, my old jeans, sheets, shirts, and so forth, and we take that into our process. The textiles are then being shredded into smaller pieces. We are then taking out, zippers and buttons and all that stuff, and then we are putting it through our process, and we are separating the fibers and bleaching the fibers. And when they are separated, we also make them a little bit amorphous, as it's called, meaning that they can be dissolved later on at our customers' location. And then we clean the material, and then we put it into a dryer, so it looks like large sheets. It looks like cardboard sheets, let's say, and that is then being packed, and that is a standard packing that we then sell to the viscose fiber producers around the world. And they don't have to change their process when it comes to using our materials. So they can go directly into production. That means that since they don't need to change anything, we can scale very, very fast. So, and from the dissolving pulp that we provide them with, they are then making the viscose fibers, and the viscose fibers are then being spun into yarns, viscose yarns, and then textiles, and then being used by brands and designers to make new clothes. And we go and buy them in the store, and then we can take those clothes back and we can recycle them again. And by that, we create that closed loop in fashion.
And this is the key innovation here. The fact that they close the loop, meaning that they keep textile in circulation using what was previously brought to the dump to create new products. Up to now, the production of viscose meant the depletion of forest. Every year, more than 150 million trees are logged and turned into cellulosic fabric. If placed end to end, those trees would circle the Earth 7 times. And between 2013 and 2020, the number of trees logged for viscose production has doubled. Renewcell produces circulose, not made from wood pulp, but from old clothes. But I found it hard to imagine that new clothes made out of my old jeans would have the same appeal to consumers. Tell me about the first time you saw someone wearing fabric that was coming out of your shop.
That was beautiful. I mean, this was in March last year, so 2020. We had a global launch together with H&M, and we were supposed to be on all their flagship stores at Champs-Élysées, in Milan, in Fifth Avenue, in Tokyo, and so forth. Unfortunately, the corona came around, but it was a big hoopla around that, and we started, and they were filling up the stores, and the clothes were just disappearing from the stores, and also on the internet. So people were buying these dresses like crazy. I bought some for my daughters and my wife and so forth. And when you start seeing people walking around and using those clothes, that's great. It's absolutely, now we do it in industrial scale. That's what I thought to myself. We have not only produced it in the lab, and we have not only produced one garment, we have produced garments. First of all, we produced it in our industrial process. We have delivered it through the whole value chain in industrial scale, meaning that everybody have ticked the box and said, this material works. And we have supplied it to stores and to consumers in the number of thousands. And that was amazing, because that means that you have proven your industrial value chain. That's huge.
And the quality of clothes is not compromised, so big brands are jumping on board.
We also launched with Levi's, and Levi's, they have been out there talking about our materials and saying, that this is their most sustainable jeans ever. That's also very satisfying. And their aim is to recycle jeans over and over again. And we are we're right there. We want to be a player. And here you have to understand, we're a small company still. We're about 25 people today. And all these huge brands, they want to work with us. So, I mean, you get a bit starstruck, of course.
This is quite exciting and, of course, brings us to the next question about Renewcell's potential for growth. Patrik told us that the fashion industry consumes 110 million tons of fiber each year, and that this will grow to 160 million tons by 2030. What is Renewcell's contribution to those needs?
We're building our next plant. It's going to be 60,000 metric tons. So you can imagine that is 0.005, I think it is, percent of the market. So we are very, very, whatever we build now is very small. So we need to build more, of course.
Can you talk a little bit about the next steps?
Yeah, and we're going to continue growing. As I said, we're setting up this first plant. The idea is by 2025 to have approximately 350,000 metric tons installed. 250 metric tons installed, and by 2025 have 500,000 metric tons of capacity installed.
Can you tell me why you've decided to also grow in Sweden?
Basically, two reasons. One is that in Sweden, we're a pulp and paper nation. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of good people who know how to operate these plants. The other thing is that, as you probably know, that the paper industry has a downturn, printed paper, because we have everything on internet and on the computers today. That means that SCA in Sundsvall is closing down the printed paper production that they have there. So that means that we can move into an existing site. We can recycle a site. We don't have to build new and use virgin type of land for building our sites. So we have already there all the infrastructure. We have the buildings, we have steam generation, we have electricity with green electricity, we have wastewater treatment plants and fresh water coming in and so forth. So that means that we are using an industrial equipment that has already been produced once. So we're not only recycling only textiles, but also recycling production sites. And that's very encouraging. Plus that there's unfortunately, there was a lot of people that had to leave when they closed down the printed paper. And our intention is to hire as many as ever possible of those people, because those people there in Sundsvall, they know very well how to produce, to operate the type of industry that we're gonna build there.
You've got to love that story. A company that uses recycled raw materials, revives abandoned infrastructure, and rehires the workforce from an industry in decline. As part of his plan to scale, Patrik is also securing contracts with large buyers such as Tangsan Sanyo, one of the largest manufacturers of viscose fibers, responsible for more than 40% of China's total viscose exports. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what you did to get there. Can you tell me about it?
Sure. I mean, if you look at the next plant, it's going to produce 60,000 metric tons. With this contract, we have about 40,000 metric tons already sold before we have built the plant. So what we did is that we negotiated this agreement. And that comes from, the strategy that we have when it comes to go to market. So what we first did was that we got a lot of brands hooked up on the idea, and then they wanted to do this, and they were quite outspokenly talking to their suppliers, so the viscose fiber producers, that this is something important. So we created a push-pull strategy when it comes to go-to-market. With that we had all that brand knowledge and brand interest. We went then to this company who is one of the largest, I think it's the fourth largest viscose producer in the world, and we started talking to them and say, well, if we have all these brands, you have this production, we have this material that the brands want, And would this be of interest to you? And then, of course, it was a win-win-win.
With the idea of win-win falling out of favor as a business buzzword, the idea of win-win-win intrigued me. So I pressed Patrik to explain.
If I may give a piece of advice when it comes to negotiations, people sometimes misinterpret what a negotiation is all about when they say, and it's more like a fight that I'm going to get and you will not get. A good negotiation is a win-win. And in our case, it was a win-win-win. Or 4 times win. The environment wins as one. We win. Sun Yutangshan win, and the brands win. And we created that win-win-win feeling in the negotiations. We created that positive spirit that everybody wanted to do it. So everybody walked the extra mile, trying and be a little bit, giving in terms of negotiations, and we all got to a very good agreement in the end.
Tell me how you do concretely to create that positive spirit that makes this win-win-win thing.
It's all about understanding their needs and what is the problem that you're solving. And when I talk to the brands, they have a problem. They don't have a technology that solves the circularity problem. When I talk to the fiber producer, they have a problem that they don't have a raw material that is circular, and they are being scrutinized by their customers. When you have understood their needs, you need to package your needs into this and say, well, if we do this, that would be win for you, that would be win for us. Wouldn't that be interesting? And then also during the negotiations, don't leave some money on the table. Don't try to take everything and you want to have all the securities and the other one don't get anything. That normally just creates bad will. Of course, you need to have a good deal for both parties, but it has to be a good deal for both parties. And in the long term, people are going to remember you as somebody that they want to work with again. When you get to that win-win situation, everybody's happy. It's a really good feeling. You become business friends rather than buyer and seller.
With his positive spirit and business approach, Patrik is already bringing Renewcell to the next level. Today, the company is way ahead of its competitors, remaining the only viscose producer in the world using 100% textile as a raw material. Now, in his second year as the CEO of Renewcell, how does Patrik feel about the future?
I feel energized by doing more. I mean, this is a problem we need to solve. And as I said earlier, this is the decade of change. We need to solve it by a decade or 2 or 3 or whatever it might be. But we need to get action now. And when I are out there talking about environmental issues, people seem to think that politicians are going to solve it. They will not solve it. They are opinion makers, and they might be able to stipulate some laws. It's us. It's you and me and us that actually solve the problems by building businesses that are sustainable. And if you look at those type of businesses today, they are outperforming the IT and the tech businesses. So, I mean, we will not save the planet by building another video game or making a new payment system, a new app for listening to music. We will save the planet by building businesses that take care of what we once have already produced.
But will it make a difference in our lifetime? Is it enough to save fashion?
Absolutely. I think we're making impact already. Because if you look at the fashion brands that are contacting us and wanting to collaborate with us, we have already shown the fashion industry that it's possible to buy and fibers that has been recycled, and they don't have to, let's say, downgrade their quality. Fashion industry, sometimes people think it's a whim or an unnecessary evil. It's not. Fashion is a way of communicating with each other. We also communicate, the level of society that we want to belong to. So mankind communicate. If we ask people to stop communicating, we will never get around the problems that we have in the fashion industry. It has to be easy to become environmentally friendly, and therefore, I believe that we need to change the the circularity as again of the fashion industry, so that we keep on producing new things out of stuff that we've already been wearing.
So, Patrik, do you think that science can save fashion and the environment?
I absolutely think that fashion, that science can save fashion and the environment. We need to use the technologies that we have already developed, and a lot of these technologies are already there. So I see it more as an evolution rather than a revolution.
It seems simple, but in the real world, finding innovations, bringing them to market, and scaling them up is not easy. It starts with science and requires will to act across the value chain. With Renewcell now proving that is possible, and investors interested in more of these sustainable solutions, Patrik has a message for scientists who want to do good, but might not know where to start.
It's very difficult to be a one-stop solution. It's very few people that have the science as well as the business acumen. So collaborate. Find people with, if you're a scientist, find business people and work closely with them. Also, give away a little bit of your company or your ideas and form a company together. Because the idea and the science is just one part of the whole thing. You need to build a business around it. You also need to have the business person around it. Everybody's looking for these type of investments. So it's the next, let's say, big thing.
And for entrepreneurs and business leaders, Patrik has insight and encouragement promising for the planet.
Profit and environment needs to go hand in hand. You need to show that the business is profitable and that you're actually going to make also your investors a little bit richer. This is the space to be in for the next decade, I think. Don't be afraid. Just do it. It's so much fun to run and build your own business that you will not go to work one more day, in your life. You will just go somewhere where you love to be. So go for it and change the environment.
Mission to Change is a podcast by the INSEAD Hoffman Global Institute for Business and Society, in collaboration with Intent. It's created and produced by Human Humans. The original music, sound design, and mixing is by Palomino. And special thanks go to Cody Gildert and Maria Lattori. For more, you can go to insead.edu/mission to change.